I was about 10 years old when I started having paranormal experiences. I was tormented by spirits from about probably age 10 or 11 until about 15, 16. Everything from seeing shadow figures to having objects thrown at me to waking up with scratches on my back. The radio was turning itself up all the way. We would go turn it off, it would turn itself back on, turn itself up all the way, and it was singing a song called The Day That Chelsea Died. That was my sister's name. My dad actually shared with me. Somebody came and warned him, don't build your house here, because this was the site of satanic abuse and rituals back before there was a house here. This darkness started to grow inside of me. Over the course of 5 years, I tried to commit suicide 3 times. I couldn't get in a car without vividly watching images in my mind of killing myself. When they commanded that demon to let me go, it literally felt like physically 40 to 50 pounds came off of me.
What's up, guys? Today we have a special guest on theme for the month of October. We've been talking about the spiritual realm, demons and our authority over them, and exposing the new age. Right now, today, we have someone that was enveloped in all of that. Witchcraft, experiencing the demonic realm, losing her mind and ending up in the psych ward, but God delivering her from it all. It's going to be an incredible story, and we are going to introduce to you guys right now Mykenna. So go ahead, Mykenna. Let us know a little bit who you are. And
thanks for having me, guys. I love that we're doing this in October. We're going to expose some of this darkness today and give glory to the Lord. So my name is Mykenna. I grew up in Minnesota. I was raised in a Christian family. I gave my life to the Lord at a very young age. What wasn't really ever addressed was what happens when you become a threat to the darkness, right? I was about 10 years old when I started having paranormal experiences.
Wow.
I was tormented by spirits from about probably age 10 or 11 until about 15, 16. Everything from seeing shadow figures to having objects thrown at me to waking up with scratches on my back. I would wake up in the middle of the night with the covers of my bed being literally held down over me, and I would be awake and I wouldn't be able to move. And so what ended up happening was I came under a lot of oppression, right?
Now, did you talk to your parents about this at all?
Yes.
And how did they handle that?
So at first, people really didn't pay much attention to it. You know, it was like, oh, these are just stories, or, you know, she might be exaggerating, or you're just freaking yourself out. What ended up happening over time was that every single person in my family ended up having some kind of experience in the house growing up, and coming to the conclusion, like, yes, this is a problem. They ended up having the church come, our local church, actually, that I grew up at, brought somebody out. They prayed with our whole family. They prayed over the home, and the activity actually stopped until I went to college. And
it's interesting because statistically, they say that about 36% of people who claim to be Christians don't believe in Satan or the spiritual realm. They would explain it away as you were having a chemical imbalance in your brain, and that your brain, because of the chemicals of the brain, were perceiving things and hallucinating. So those are some pretty incredible hallucinations that you're having, because they were causing scratching in the blankets. Like, that must have been a hallucination, or was that a very real thing that you were experiencing?
It was very real. And I think the cool thing about my story was that my family members ended up having experiences too. So, I mean, are you going to call that?
It wasn't just you, yeah.
Exactly. And some of them were when we were together. I can tell you one quick one. My sister ran downstairs and she goes, Mykenna, you need to come upstairs. The radio is acting crazy. And I'm like, oh, great, here we go again. Because at this point, I mean, I've been dealing with this for 5 years.
How old are you at this time?
I want to say probably 15. So this is probably right before the church would have come in and the activity would have stopped. And my sister Chelsea runs downstairs. She goes, come upstairs, please. The radio is acting crazy. I come upstairs, and I kid you not, and she will tell you the same story. The radio was turning itself up all the way. We would go turn it off. It would turn itself back on, turn itself up all the way. And it was singing a song called The Day That Chelsea Died. That was my sister's name. We were both standing in the room together.
Yeah.
And so these are the kinds of things that were happening in my house. And I shared with Alex earlier,
Jeez.
it wasn't until after I was free that my dad actually shared with me. Somebody came and warned him, don't build your house here, because this was the site of satanic abuse and rituals back before there was a house here,
Jeez.
Don't build it. This is called the Booger Woods. Don't build your house here. So there was a lot working against me and my family at that time. What I was telling Alex, though, is I didn't understand my authority. I had no idea who I was. I loved Jesus. I had said yes to him. I'd had a real encounter with the Holy Spirit, but I didn't realize what I had access to.
Yeah, isn't it? It's amazing. You can be saved and not know who you are. And
Absolutely.
I mean, even when people say you shouldn't build your house there, a lot of Christians are like, oh yeah, you shouldn't. That's an Indian burial ground. As believers, we can build our house anywhere.
Absolutely.
Because those demons. But when you don't know who you are, you really invite the devil in. And it sounds like a church came, prayed, and kind of said, no, this house is claimed by the blood of Jesus, because then it stopped at that point.
Because what was because you had been dealing with that since 10? You said it started?
Yeah.
What was like
years.
the breaking point? Because you had been dealing with all of this and kind of just been putting up with it. What was the breaking point that led you to be like, okay, we got to call in reinforcements to figure this out?
Yeah, my parents actually got to that place where they realized, like, okay, this is a way bigger issue. Yes, this is affecting everybody in the family. Let's get the church involved. And so my parents reached out to their church, and the church sent somebody out. And like you said, right, we already had the authority. We just weren't using it.
Yeah.
And they prayed over the house, and they prayed over us as a family. We went around and we prayed, and the activity stopped. And what never really got addressed, though, was why it was attacking me in the first place and attacking my family. And I still didn't understand who I was or what authority I carried or what it even meant to follow Christ. And so I went to college, and it came back with vengeance. And so I went to college. By the time I was 21.
How were you at in your faith at this point in time?
So if you would have asked me, like, do you believe in Jesus? Is he your savior? I would have said yes, but I was completely ignorant to what it really meant to follow him. I was doing my own thing. I was promiscuous. I was experimenting with drugs. I was living like the world, even though I loved the Lord. So I just didn't know. And I also I think there was a spiritual blindness to it as well. I really didn't understand what it meant to follow him, nor did I really have the true desire to. And so I struggle with, was I even saved at that point? I don't know. I think the Lord had already maybe, claimed me as his, right? But I don't know if I'd actually received the Holy Spirit yet. I'm not sure. But yeah, I was in college living like the world. If you had asked me, I would have said I'm saved and I love Jesus and he's my savior. I totally believed he was the Son of God. I just was doing whatever I wanted. And so I got to college. I, experimented with some drugs. I was, very promiscuous, which I think led to a lot of open doors in my life. I also walked into some situations that I was just totally ignorant to. I mentioned earlier to Alex that I pledged a sorority, which sounds really, benign on the surface, but you participate in rites and rituals where you're actually binding yourself to basically a secret society. And a lot of that, when you look beyond the mask, is it's really a cult. And there's a lot of, they identify themselves with false gods. And I later found out I had some possibly generational predisposition to some of that. So I start, opening some more doors, intentionally and unintentionally. And that darkness really came back.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how Satan establishes some of that stuff? I mean, you're in one respect identifying with Christ.
Yep.
And then Satan almost establishes it as just normal or very discreet, or it's harmless.
Right.
It's just harmless fun. It's not a big deal. Why do you make this a big deal? And yet they're like small doors, and even maybe they are small doors. They're not huge doors, but it's just a door. It's like opening, it's like having a gap when mice get in your garage. The door can be closed, but if you have a little open space, it's going to find a way in. And I think sometimes we think they're harmless, and no demon is harmless if you don't deal with it, right?
Right.
So you're opening these little doors little by little, and what happens through all that?
Demons get in.
Yeah.
Critters. We call them critters because, I mean, literally, like you said, they're like little, they sneak in through these doors. And I mean, if I'm going to be totally honest, I feel like I had many little doors open, which ended up giving the enemy a lot of access to me. And
how did you, but like you say that, and there's people watching you right now or listening to you right now, you say you opened the door. How did that manifest? How did you know you were opening doors? Like, were you seeing things manifest and know you were opening those doors?
No. And looking back, the Lord really highlighted some of the stuff that I did and said, because I got free, and then he's like, now I'm going to show you how this happened, basically,
So hindsight, you're recognizing.
Yeah, like he took me back, and he's like, you did this, and these open doors to this. And some of it was just blatant rebellion. I didn't know that that's what that was, but like the sexual sin, I was debating whether or not it was okay to be promiscuous with people. I'm like, everything's under the blood. Like that sounds really crazy.
Under grace.
Yeah. Like there's no condemnation. I can do what I want, like literally that was my theology. And I mean, and so that was a door. And, but some of like
so you're not seeing like these terrorizing manifestations of the devil at the time. Some of the manifestations are so subtle you don't even know they are.
Right. And so some of the more terrifying manifestations actually came through the door of like pledging that sorority. Okay. So I pledged that sorority. I, participated in a ritual where I bound myself to a secret society, whose symbols were the skull and crossbones and the owl. I then went and got demonic tattoos on my body at a place called the Asylum. The guy who tattooed me was a Freemason. I was working at a burger restaurant that was named after a branch of Freemasonry. And then I ended up having what was like a giant demonic shadow following me around. And I actually wrote about it in my testimony, that it felt like I was being gang stalked by spiritual beings. Like it literally felt like they were following me around. And I was mentioning earlier to Alex too, like it also manifested in some weird things happening with numerology. Now that sounds weird. Like, wait, what do you mean? But like random series of numbers started showing up, and one of them was 666. Like, and a lot of it's just superstition. The enemy's trying to make you afraid. Well, it worked. Right. It worked because I didn't know who I was. And so, one of the nights right before I got really sick and lost my mind, my sales were 666 on the dot. I went home, and like a day or two later, I got a bill in the mail with a credit from one of my energy companies, and the credit was for $6.66. I've never gotten a credit from them in my life. I've always paid them, Where did this credit come from? And it was all postmarked, and all of this happened on Friday the 13th. Like all of it was superstitious. All of it all felt like a heavy demonic presence. And I really do think that I invited it by kind of like marking myself for those beings. I mean, I didn't know it, but okay, so like, let's talk about Leviticus.
Well, and what's interesting as you're doing it, for most people who have no church background at all, if they saw 666, that wouldn't even faze them. Most people don't know a lot of the stuff you're bringing up, which is, if you're listening, 666 is the number of man, and they tie it to the mark of the beast and all of that stuff. So you had enough church to understand that some of this was very connected demonic things.
Yep.
For people who don't have that would have probably never fazed them to see those numbers or to do any of that. So people are coming, but you had just enough understanding to know that when it took place. So now you have this shadow following you. I'm sure. Did you tell anybody about it?
I think I might have mentioned it maybe to a roommate, but I mean, they kind of knew my background with having a lot of like paranormal stuff happening to me as a child. But
So do they think you're just crazy?
they didn't, but then I mean, eventually everybody did because I lost my mind. I ended up having a full blown mental breakdown where the police had to get involved. My parents had to come get me. I mean, I was out at school in Iowa. And I was eventually put into a mental institution, and I had a psychotic episode that lasted 30 days before they eventually got me to take medication.
So what was the buildup to this? Was it just like the constant, berating that these forces you said were like following you that just made your mind split? Like what led up to that eventual break where you were in an institute for 30 days?
So there is some of it that to this day I'm still trying to figure out what happened. I went to the Dominican Republic. I brought back a drink elixir called Mama Juana. And back in the day, I don't know if you can actually still Google this and find evidence of this, but other Americans had gone to the Dominican and had this drink, and it had caused them to lose their minds. I brought that back with me. I was smoking weed. I was, abusing Adderall. So all of this, I think, played a part on like the physical level.
Yeah.
I was opening all these spiritual doors. I was given ecstasy at a pharmacy. That's a whole nother story. That was documented in my medical records. Nobody believed me at the time because why would you believe that? But my mom, she will literally tell you, you were calling me saying, oh, this new medication they gave me is making all the colors brighter and everything's touching. Everything is so much more fun. I was taking...
And they gave you ecstasy.
Somebody gave me ecstasy at a pharmacy. So all of these things led up to a point in time where it felt like I got hit by beams of energy. My brain literally started going probably 1,000 times faster than it was supposed to. Started making all sorts of crazy spiritual connections. My eyes ended up getting basically pitch black because I literally I felt like half of my body was in a spiritual world and half of it was in the physical world. It literally didn't even feel like I was on earth anymore. My brain was in a totally different place. So I started saying crazy things to my roommates. My roommates contacted my parents. They came and got me. They brought me back to Minnesota. They put me into an institution or to a psych ward. They brought me to a psych ward. I ended up there for 30 days because I refused to take medication. I mean, if you look at the documentation that they even make you sign, you would never want to take these meds. Literally, they had to get the entire student staff and all of the doctors to come into the room together to try to convince me basically to take the medication and to sign these documents, and I wouldn't do it.
Because that would mean they were going to give you all of this medication. That's why you didn't want to do it.
Well, and you read it. This is the first time I've ever really been asked to take anything like this before too. You read the documentation and it's like, can cause this, and I'm like, why would I ever take that? And at the time I felt pretty good. The first psychotic episode I ever had felt very enlightening. It wasn't very dark. I was mentioning this to you yesterday when we spoke briefly about what the drugs did to me. But the psych drugs actually, I think, brought the darkness even more internal. It internalized it to a point where it gave the enemy an even more authoritative or stronghold inside of me.
So you did end up signing it, and what
they ended up taking me to court.
Oh, wow.
And the judge basically asked me, will you take the medication if I let you go? Because at that point they were doing something called a Jarvis, which if I had refused to take the medication, they would have just injected it into me by force. Yeah. And so I eventually agreed. I started taking the medication, and then, things just got really, much, much worse, in my opinion. So the psychotic episode stopped, the mania stopped, but this darkness started to grow inside of me. Over the course of 5 years, I tried to commit suicide 3 times. I couldn't get in a car without vividly watching images in my mind of myself. Jeez. I couldn't go into a kitchen and pick up a knife without having vivid images of myself. Wow. It was incredibly dark. The way that I basically described it was like having a demonic clown show in your head 24/7, and they're just giving this great theater, of just horrible imagery and violence against myself constantly playing in my mind. And
this was a result after you took the
psychiatric drugs.
Interesting.
And so on the surface, people were like, wow, these drugs are really making you better. Because I wasn't, I wasn't being aggressive outright anymore. Like, and I wasn't manic, right? I wasn't delusional, right? I wasn't having hallucinations. I wasn't, crazy in their eyes. I was being more manageable. And I shared yesterday too that one of them even made me into a compulsive gambler. Thank you for that lovely side effect. So they put me on a drug called Abilify. They actually took it basically almost completely off the market because the pharmaceutical industry hid that was a side effect from the public. So for 3 years, I became a compulsive gambler and basically blew every paycheck in the casinos. Jeez. So if you can just imagine all the trauma that compounded on top of each other.
It's so random. I've never heard a side effect like that's crazy.
Yeah. And so I mean, the darkness grew. Tried to kill myself. Didn't want to be alive. Eventually got to a place where the Lord actually confronted me with something. He said, "Do you want to leave your daughter a legacy of suicide?"
Jeez.
And it hit me like a bus. I mean, my daughter didn't have a dad.
When did you have your daughter? At what point did you have your daughter?
So I had Charlotte about, I think she was like 8 months old when I got set free. So I had her actually, I went on a meth bender at a casino with her dad and got pregnant, escaped from him.
So this is after you were in the ward.
Yeah.
The psych ward.
Well,
this was
I had
afterwards.
been in five or six times. I'd been in and out of psych
going back
wards.
and forth. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, there were times where, I literally went missing in Minneapolis for a week or 2 weeks, and my parents found me downtown with a different hair color. Can't tell you a whole lot about what even happened because I was so out of my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when I got pregnant, I had been doing meth. I'd been running around crazy, got pregnant, had Charlotte, and I think the last attempt, she was a few months old. And the Lord asked me, he said, "Do you want to leave her a legacy of?" So I was still hearing from the Lord a little bit here and there, even during that dark period of time. I've got amazing stories about how he showed up even in the darkness.
It sounds very familiar to a scripture where he says, "I will not leave you or forsake you." That even in your darkest moments, he appears to you. I remember a guy who was in a similar place in a drug house and a number of years ago, and God appeared to him while he was high, like sobered him in a moment.
Yep.
He was right in the middle of a high, and he just sobered up in a moment and said, you can get out right now if you'll walk away.
Yep.
And he got up and walked out and was a changed man from that point on. But like God never leaves you or forsakes you. And this is one of those moments where you're in the middle of it, don't feel like there's escape, and then he shows up.
Yeah, and actually when I was on that meth bender at the casino and I was in this really abusive spot with this guy, the Lord actually spoke to me then too, and he said, "You're pregnant, and if you don't escape, she's not going to make it."
Jeez.
And so I took that initiative because of what I heard him say. And I went down to the casino floor under all the cameras and I took my stand. And I said, "I'm not going with you." And he flipped out. Some random person sheltered me, brought me out to her car. She goes, "I know what's happening. I can see that you're being abused. I've been there. Come with me." And she put me in the back of her pickup, threw the blanket over me, went back into the casino. He was following her around, harassing her so that she could get her friend and come and get me out of there. And it was crazy because I actually went to the doctor probably 3 or 4 days later and I said, "Test me. I think I'm pregnant." And they said, "You're not pregnant. We just tested you." And I'm like, what is going on, right? Like, I swear I heard him say I was. And I ended up back at the doctor's office like a week after that. And I was persistent. I said, "Test me. I think I'm pregnant." And he goes, "We were just tested a week ago. So, or, like about a week ago, there's no way you are." I said, "Just do the test." And sure enough, I was pregnant. So, it must have been within a few days of conceiving, Charlotte, that the Lord stepped in and said, "If you don't get away from him, she's not going to make it." Wow. And it's funny because talking about I'm never going to leave you or forsake you, I was so ashamed of who I had become and the things that I had done that I don't even know if I would have taken deliverance if it had just been me. The Lord leveraged my daughter. He totally did. And and
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so, he confronted me, 2 months after she was born, after I'd had that last attempt, do you want to leave her a legacy of and I said no. And so I promised the Lord, I said, I'll never try that again, no matter how dark it gets. And within 6 months, he set me free.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't forsake me. He already had a plan. He was already, putting it in motion. I didn't see it all. A lot of it was hindsight, looking back, going, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
he was there the whole time.
So at what point do you start clawing back, or like where do you come to at this point where you start to see God? Because you really, when you're at the point is you can't claw out of this pit, you need help.
Yeah.
When does that begin to take the turn and
Where you get the deliverance.
where you
broke.
So what happened was, and actually the entire time that I was sick, I was going back and forth between, is this a spiritual problem or is this a mental health problem, right? Is this an illness or is this a spiritual battle? And I would flip-flop between the two the whole time that I was sick. And my sister actually met a evangelist in college, and she became friends with him, and he was very well aware of what was going on with me. And it got to a point where I was going to die. I mean, there were so many things working against me. Even my own medication list was enough to overdose on. What they had prescribed me was enough to possibly cause serious physical effects, to the point where I could overdose. Like, that's just, my life was in serious jeopardy on multiple levels. And she reached out, and I was also violent at the time. I had gotten to the point where, I broke a pool cue in half, and I was chasing my dad around the basement with it, trying to stab him.
Wow.
Like, it was bad. I was not a good person. I was very sick spiritually. And the darkness had taken just complete control over me. And so my sister reached out in desperation because this guy knew my story. She had, gone to school with him the whole time I was suffering. And he just goes, she needs deliverance. And my sister's like, deliver what? What is that? She had no clue. And he goes, the Lord told me she needs deliverance tonight or never. And so my sister chased me around the basement for probably a couple hours trying to get me on the phone with these guys. Please call these guys, reach out to these guys. They want to help you. And it wasn't until I actually had another moment with the Lord, and I felt what it felt like a hand came down on my chest. And all I heard was, be silent and listen to what's going on in your mind. And for the first time in years, I had nothing going on in my mind, which was a miracle because it was constant battle noise, just like torment, not like nonstop.
when you say that, what do you mean?
Like, like if you put your head underwater in a bathtub and like you don't hear anything anymore.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. But for me, I couldn't do that because the reality is even when I was not speaking, the battle was raging in my mind almost all the time. And so it felt like for the first time I could hear nothing. Like there was nothing going on. No thoughts, nothing. But what I did hear was two mocking male voices making fun of these evangelists who wanted to help me. Oh, they think they're going to help her in the name of Jesus. Ha ha ha. Like basically making fun of and mocking these guys who wanted to help me. And it was at that moment that I was like, there's a lot of crappy things that I have done and would probably do at this point. But one thing I would never do is mock the Lord or mock Jesus or mock somebody doing something in the name of Jesus to try to help somebody. And so I identified in that moment, this is spiritual. I sat down with those guys and they helped lead me through deliverance over the phone.
Wow.
And so when that happened, it felt like 50 pounds actually came off my body. When they commanded that demon to let me go, it literally felt like physically 40 to 50 pounds came off of me. And it actually tried to come back and they just reasserted, no, you can't have her. And that night I was completely set free. So my mom actually wasn't home when this was all going down. She came back the next day and she ran over to my dad and she goes, what happened to Mykenna? And of course my dad's like, oh crap, what'd she do? Like, we just basically she went through deliverance last night. She's not taking her meds anymore. What did she do? And my mom goes, for the first time in 5 years, I can see my daughter again.
Wow.
She could tell just by looking in my eyes that something had changed. She had no clue what had happened. She wasn't home.
Wow.
And so what was crazy about this whole thing too is for a year I had to keep my testimony quiet because I was under a court order to take medication. And so I was sharing some pictures with Alex before you came today, and I was showing him all the medications that I had to go and fill and keep in a bucket, because if I didn't, I would be in contempt basically of the court order, and they would put me into a state mental hospital
and inject it into you.
through a Jarvis order. And so for a year, I had to continue to go see psychiatrists. I had to continue to fill my prescriptions and keep them in a bucket. I had to continue to see a social worker until the state released me. And
Did they know what was going on?
No.
They couldn't tell the difference between the old you?
They thought the treatment was working so well. They were just like, this is great. You're employed now. You're healthy. You're happy. You're successful. Like, everything's great.
As great as it is, it may have reinforced to the authorities that we need to do this more often. Because these are
the gods that saved you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's crazy because I literally couldn't say who was the one who saved me, because even when I was sick, I had religious delusions. So what am I going to do? Go before the judge and be like, yeah, Jesus saved me? They're going to be like, history of psychosis and religious delusions. They're going to write me off as nuts. And so I kept quiet and I filled my prescriptions. I went to the doctor and I just kept them in a bucket. My whole family was in support of me doing this because they could see I was free. And I mean, I quit the psychiatric medications cold turkey, which in and by itself is a complete miracle, because there are people to this day who are, trying to wean off these drugs and can't because the side effects are so severe.
Wow.
And so what happened was I eventually got my letter from the state of Minnesota that said you're released,
Wow.
And so I went and I got baptized at my church and gave my testimony. Within 3 days, I got a call from my social worker. She goes, so I heard you gave a testimony at church. You want to tell me about it? And I said, can you tell me for sure if I'm off the hook? Can you guarantee to me that the state has no legal, precedence here anymore? Can they do anything to me? And she goes, no. And so I told her the truth. I said, within a couple weeks of being out of the hospital, I went through a deliverance. There were 2 evangelists who prayed for me. I was completely delivered and set free. I have not taken a single medication in a year, and I have them all in a bucket. And she goes, I'm really thankful that you didn't say that to me, because I would have been forced by law to put you in a state hospital. And so I actually took all those medications and dropped them off on drug DEA drop-off day, at the Lakeville Police Department. I actually had 2 officers sign for them saying these are full, because I wanted there to be documentation that I had not taken these drugs.
Wow. Just to testify.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I did. And I dropped them off and gave my testimony, started publicly talking about what had happened to me. And I mean, on paper, I was telling Alex, like, I have a bin of medical documents. That's probably 1,000 pieces of paper. And I just pulled one out and I was like, okay, let me just look at some of these, and see, what was going on. I mean, this was just a random report from this huge pile, but this was in October of 2016. So, not very long before I was set free, because I was set free in January of 2017. And I was in a severe depressed bipolar episode without psychotic features. But this was my list of active diagnoses at the time. It was bipolar 1 disorder with a severe depressed episode, ADHD, which debatably might be a little wired different still, which is fine, right? That's the one thing God didn't really deliver me of, was the squirrely tendencies. Post-traumatic stress disorder, insomnia disorder, and anxiety disorder. And my list of medications, I mean, were so high that I mean, it was literally overdose levels. So, I mean, it's just crazy, right? Like, here you have somebody who, and this is my favorite. I brought this today just to share because it's hilarious. At some point, I have no clue when, and I can't get any answers from the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota actually labeled me a mental defective. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I actually want to get this framed.
That seems incredible, in a very progressive state at that, to label anybody. I mean,
right. And they apologized for the term. Even the special agent who wrote me the letter did. He was like, sorry, the term is a little outdated.
Yeah.
But basically what happened was I tried to exercise my right to get a firearm for self-protection. I'm a single mom. I was going to go and do it all the right way, get my conceal and carry, actually learn about it and get one. I get a letter from the ATF and the Department of Justice, and it's basically like, oh, hey, Mykenna, sorry, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System has you listed as an adjudicated mental defective. Please forgive the term. However, that is how the law reads. And if you think it's a mistake, you can take that up with the FBI.
Wow.
And I mean, I had no idea when they even did that. I mean, I've tried to contact the state to get more information, but I can't get an answer. But yeah, so I mean, like, glory to God though, right? Because I mean, the state
further testifying that you were like,
it's the dilemma that I think society is faced with right now in so many levels. Like you said, was this a spiritual thing or is this a chemical thing in your brain that's going wrong, like something's not right? And one needs healing, the other needs deliverance. Right. And there are people in either one of these camps, but culture they don't believe in the spiritual realm. They just throw it all in one. I mean, I heard a doctor say, one of these very well-trained doctors say, if everyone had a psych evaluation, they probably would be on the spectrum somewhere.
Exactly. Well, now everything is turning into a spectrum. They're literally turning everything into a spectrum.
Right. Everybody's got something going. So now there's this very trauma, and it's worked everybody up to, why is it so much worse now? Well, now we feel like we need to define everything in a matter that, we have to define who you are, and we got to label you, or we got to put something on that. And what's cool is, this is a great example for somebody, maybe it is a spiritual thing that you're facing if you're watching this, and it's something that God is doing. We don't hear these testimonies enough, so I think people start to assume that God once did that, but he doesn't do it anymore. Yeah. He's still doing it. It's just that we haven't really given a platform to it, because for some people, they just think that's crazy to think that way. Right. And it's not. So to take us on in this story, move us, kind of get in a car and then kind of move on in the story. You're now walking in this freedom, and then what happens?
So what ended up happening was I get set free, I get baptized. Now I'm like a free woman, right? And now I just had this really, for lack of better words, Pentecostal experience, right? Mm-hmm. And I grew up kind of in a Christian framework that didn't really have a whole lot of room for supernatural deliverances or healings. And so I got really passionate about learning more about who I was. I did a ton of identity work right out the gate, because what I really realized was, okay, Jesus is not only real, but he's working, and I'm his. So now what? And so I started pursuing all sorts of different workshops through the church to learn about my identity, to get more of an understanding about what the Bible really said. I ended up going to Northwestern. When we first met, I told you I went to school at Northwestern, and you said you had a really Pentecostal experience, and then ended up at Northwestern. I had no framework though. I didn't know where to go. I was like, okay, it's a Christian school, but it was actually a lot of fun, because I got a lot of differing perspectives. And here I am. I'm literally like a woman that's been delivered of diseases and demons. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm here to learn about ministry, Mm-hmm. And so I did. I went and did the ministry class there. I ended up actually taking a job and going and doing ministry and working with victims of polygamous cults. Took a job, moved out to Utah as a single mom, and got to share, the love of Jesus with people who had been abused by religion, and so God just put me on this totally different path. It's been this year, it'll be 9 years since I've been medication free.
Wow. And
just living that out. Now I get to help with, recovery ministries. I'm constantly going out downtown and doing ministries with the homeless. I love sharing what God did. I love testifying about what he did. Because, before all of this, I was told that you're never getting better. Mm-hmm. Like, you are going to be on these psychiatric drugs for the rest of your life. And you're going to basically just try to stay alive.
Yeah.
Like, cope with it, basically. That's your outlook for life, is just
cope.
Get your symptoms to a place where you don't want to die anymore. Like, that was my outlook. And now my outlook is like, I'm a free woman.
Yeah.
I know Jesus is real. I have this powerful testimony of God doing something impossible, and I want to see other people set free.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see other people encounter God the way I did. Because what it really took, and I love how simple this is, was one encounter with the Lord.
Yeah.
And I mean, the evangelist himself said, "Do you believe in Jesus?" "Yes." "Oh, this will be easy." I'm like, easy. I tried witchcraft to get free. I tried, seeking out the new age to get free. I was telling Alex, I literally sought out a psychiatrist, an ex-psychiatrist who had treated the criminally insane who became a shaman. I went to another state to try to get free and see him because I was so desperate. And one encounter, one touch, one deliverance, and telling that demon to let me go in the name of Jesus. And I mean, I had to repent.
Well, and probably all those encounters were only upping
absolutely
the power of the enemy because they're all on the same side.
Absolutely. And the same with those psych drugs, in my opinion. It's like treating demon dogs with biscuits, giving them biscuits.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that was my uncle. My uncle actually termed that because so after I got set free, a year later, the same evangelist that helped set me free, we all got on a plane, went to Arizona, and my uncle, who had been diagnosed with severe mental illness for 35 years, was set free. And that's how he coined it. He said it's like feeding biscuits to demon dogs.
Jeez.
And so now he's free too, and he's been free for 8 years. I've been free for 9. Combined, the amount of money that they would have spent on us was millions of dollars and thousands of pill bottles in our lifetime. And now free and able to pursue whatever God has.
So I know this about your story, but to close it off, because I think it's interesting talking about the mental health realm and God's ability to set people free from it. Can you share briefly about what took place where your brain snapped again, but it wasn't because of what you did, it was because of abuse that you experienced that led you to where you thought you would never be again. And then the people more so who you interacted with and were able to do ministry with, like these forgotten people.
Totally. And it was actually really an interesting experience because I didn't even realize I was afraid of the psychiatric community. I was afraid of doctors. And I didn't even really realize it. I mean, I was avoiding them like the plague, but I wasn't really consciously thinking like I'm afraid of them. But basically, when I was out doing ministry, I ended up in an abusive marriage. And there's not a lot that you can say about narcissistic abuse without actually living it. It's horrible. It's like having somebody who's literally trying to break your brain in half. And so I ended up being psychologically, emotionally, and physically abused by my husband for months and months, just meticulously trying to break my brain in half. And so
And how is that? For those who may not know what, there may be people listening and they're hearing, what does that look like? Because there may be people that maybe are going through it and don't even realize it's going on. And you think, well, that's absurd. You would, of course, know what's going on. There's people who do not know that. Why didn't you leave it? What was keeping you there as this is taking place?
Well, this is actually pretty interesting. So something that doesn't get talked about is how narcissistic or predatory people actually look for positions of influence or power inside of churches or nonprofits or places where they might have, some influence over vulnerable people. So what I had found out was that my ex-husband actually purposely was hiding in the church and in these ministries, appearing to be a good guy and actually mirroring the true professing believers around him. And so I actually had a conversation with him very early on in the relationship, and I said, "You're either crazy or you're just like me." And I was so naive, I had no clue he was mirroring me. So he actually later on admitted to studying me and becoming exactly who he knew that I wanted.
That's scary.
So that he could prey on me. Jeez. And basically his goal was to get me to a place of being under his control. I was a perfect disguise for him too. I found out later he had been running from the law. He had been running from his past. He had actually gotten into this recovery ministry to hide from the fact that he had committed a heinous crime in another state. And he had everybody around him fooled. I mean, this man was literally, leading Bible studies. He was, knew the Bible better than almost anybody I knew. And actually, he used religious abuse to try to put me into a position of submission as a woman, and keep me quiet about the abuse.
How did he do that?
Basically, by going and trying to get help from the directors or the leaders of the church that I was dishonoring him. And so he would gaslight me. He would stonewall me. Like he would literally go out of his way to, purposely get a response from me. Then that he would then flip. It's hard to explain exactly how they do it, but like, I'll give you, an example. This is one of the most extreme examples. I'll give you two. One smaller so you can kind of see the daily battle that was going on. It was Mother's Day, right? And I just wanted to go get flowers. But because I couldn't choose which flower I wanted, this is sick, but this is how messed up it was. He then proceeded to completely ignore me for 3 days just because of flowers. And so I'm sitting here going, what is going on? What is going on? You won't even talk to your own wife. And literally he was like, you just wouldn't make your mind up about flowers. I'm like, so you're just gonna ignore me and go out of your way to like make me feel like, so it was like stuff like this all the time.
Something I had to apologize you for.
And I didn't even know what I did wrong. Yeah. I mean, literally it was like walking on eggshells. My mom asked him when he finally had gotten to a place where he relapsed into alcoholism. Like, what? Okay, we know Mykenna's a strong-willed woman. Like, what has she done? He goes, she wouldn't go to the pool with me one time. What do you mean she wouldn't go to the pool? Like that's your biggest qualm with her, is like she wouldn't go to the pool with you. There was a time where I was in Las Vegas because that was the airport that was the cheapest to get out of, because the ministry we were at was just maybe like an hour from there. And we were there and I didn't fill the ice bucket up right. And he me because I filled the ice bucket up wrong. And then something I said triggered him to the point where he felt like sexually assaulting me as punishment was the right thing to do. So
this isn't normal.
No, it's not. And so
if someone's going through this now, you would say to them,
I would say, if you are experiencing any kind of emotional, psychological, physical abuse inside a marriage, you should go to the elders of your church or the people around you and let them know. And if your husband or wife is telling you that not to seek help, to honor them, that is not proper use of scripture at all. Yeah. And we are not supposed to cover for abuse. He also, did things like coerced me to make decisions I didn't want to make, because if I did, I was disobeying him. He was the head of the house. If he made this decision, then it was his decision to make, and I couldn't say or do anything about it. And so,
how long were you married to him?
Not long. So it was within a few weeks after being married that I realized something was seriously wrong. I mean, it's hard to actually live with somebody and not notice that there's something not right. And so me being kind of my mom said he thought he married a church mouse. I'm not a church mouse. I love the Lord. Like, I have no problem being obedient to God. I love being obedient to the Lord. But if there's something demonic, I'm going to poke the bear, And so I started kind of pushing back, like, some of your stories aren't making sense. Some of the things you're saying are a massive red flag to me. And I started kind of pushing back, and the mask slipped very, very fast. I actually tried to save my marriage by actually telling him, hey, you can be free from this. Because I saw what I felt like was demonic oppression in him too. Yeah. And so I stayed longer than I probably should have. I kept quiet for longer than I probably should have, because I really wanted to see him encounter the Lord and, all of that. But all of that abuse basically led to me being in a state of fight or flight for years. I mean, years. And my brain broke completely again. And so what I've told people before is, when the Lord set me free, like, he didn't completely get rid of the pathways in my brain, right? That might have led to, being capable of going manic. Well, okay, no sleep, being in fight or flight for 2 years, I was pregnant with Anna at the time, led to me having a complete mental breakdown again. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who would treat marijuana like a sacred cow, but I was microdosing, smoking a tiny bit of marijuana just to get relief from the pain. Yeah, that was a bad idea. Stress. Those are doors, man. It's a door. And so I literally, you know, like you said, these little doors, I opened up some of these little doors again. The stress, some of it not my fault, you know, I didn't intentionally marry a narcissist or a psychopathic person. But you know, some of the things like microdosing of marijuana, bad idea. All these things combined though, my brain ended up just snapping. And so I did it, ended up in a psych ward, and it was terrifying. Yeah. Now I'm like, okay, they're going to try to drug me again.
Yeah,
you know,
your fear.
Oh man, it was crazy. So, but what was really cool is a couple things. One, the Lord's providence was still there. He did not forsake me.
Yeah.
I ended up with a psychiatrist who was a Christian. And so the psych ward would actually contacted my parents, and they're like, you know, she's saying this. It's crazy. She's delusional. My mom's like, all of that's true.
Yeah.
And she confronted the psychiatrist and said, you know, are you a man of God or are you a man of science? Because if you don't look at my daughter's testimony, her story through the lens of your faith, you're never going to understand her. And so long story short, I told the doctors, I said, give me 3 days of sleep and I'll be fine. I need to sleep. And, you know, they eventually did, they had started the process of trying to force drugs again.
Yeah.
But the psychiatrist actually then stopped the process. And that was amazing, a miracle, right? But it was terrifying because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to drug me again. They're going to, you know, they're going to chemically restrain me again. Like, I don't want to be on drugs. But what was cool was even in the midst of this trial, right? Crazy trial, just went through another nightmare storm. The Lord used me to minister to people in the psych ward. And I mean, I was telling Alex, like, I would say safely, just an estimate, 70-80% of the people in there are probably dealing with something very spiritually dark and real. And like you said, you know, we're so hung up on only treating the physical side of it, which we now know we don't really know much at all about what's really going on in people's brains. It's not a chemical imbalance. So what even is it, you know? But they very rarely are treating any of the spiritual stuff. I had conversations with people who, you know, had family members who they said were high up in secret societies, and they have vivid memories of walking through baby graveyards as a child with baby body parts everywhere. And we actually, I was able to sit on the psych ward floor with her, and she actually had a Masonic ring that was handed down generationally to her. And we sat there and we prayed that the Lord would deliver her from any generational curses associated with anything her family had been involved with, or that she had been involved with, intentionally or not. And she threw that sucker across the psych ward floor. You know, this is I
mean, you're opening a can of worms when you start getting into secret societies. It's probably another podcast that we need to do and talk about. It's a very real thing. Again, what seemingly is harmless is not harmless. Right. And that people will hear that and they'll start to think, okay, these are crazy people. Yeah. Right. But, okay, so you get out of this ward, they let you go. Yeah. And then you divorce your husband at that point? What happens?
Well, and I'd already been separated from him for a little while. Okay. I had been living alone, but I mean, he had been still tormenting me from a distance, calling me. I mean, he showed up outside my apartment multiple times. So basically, I held out for a year. I said, Lord, get a hold of him. If he can't submit to you within a year, you know, then I'm gonna file for divorce, and I did. But what was kind of cool is during that whole nightmare storm, I mean, I lost my employment at the ministry I was working for. So I lost my church family in Utah, came back, got kicked out of my home church because Charlotte flipped a table over in Sunday school. Oh, so now I'm like literally in the middle of like trying to escape a domestic violence situation. At the time I was still with my husband. And then Annie Schrader brought me to Bethel's Rock, and she said, they're not going to turn you away. Wow. And I said, okay, as soon as I get there, I need to talk to the children's pastor so they at least know what they're, you know, in for. With my daughter, you know, just being a child, seeing a lot of this and experiencing this. I mean, and she never had a dad. So now the only dad she's ever known is abusing her mom and disappeared. And so, Bethel's Rock opened their doors to me. They received me with love. And that's how I got connected to the Prestons, and they kind of took me under their wing too. And it was a painful process even to get back to now. I just saw somebody out there in the church office who's like, oh, you look so great. I haven't seen you in a while. I mean, it takes years to recover from narcissistic abuse. It takes years to recover from, or it can. I mean, for me, it did. It took years to really recover from that.
And I think one of the problems with our culture calling everyone they don't like a narcissist
right.
robs
no kidding.
The actual it lessens how bad an actual narcissist is in a situation, because we just make everybody we don't like a narcissist.
Right.
Yeah.
And in your situation, it's a different story, and it actually was, by the definition, what you're saying, and the influence it has even to keep you there for as long as you were there. Right now, so now you're here, you're looking back and you saw some of those doors. Can you help people? And you said, as I look back on it, I think in the beginning you said, as I look back on it, I see all the open doors I opened. No one can argue with the testimony. They can argue with me if I bring it up and talk about how secret societies are this way, or, we talked to somebody about how celebrating Halloween even, you think, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, but consider what you're doing. It is the highest number of human sacrifices in the world on this evening, and we're having a party.
Right, and do you want to be a part of that?
Yeah, and a lot of people have a different opinion of how but I think the thing that really flipped me was, I'm not going to celebrate on a night when people are dying to demonic things or being kidnapped or all of the stuff that we're now finding out by this. You had mentioned, when people hear you walk this road, what were some of the doors you opened now that you look back and you say, that was an open door that maybe no one thinks anything of, but it was an open door in my life?
Yeah. I'll say this twofold. There was, at a very basic sense, the Bible is true, right? All the things God warns us about, they're because he loves us, right? I rebelled against my parents. It sounds like, oh, that was an open door. Oh, yes, it was. Mm-hmm. I had a very rebellious nature as a child. I was sexually promiscuous. I did drugs. I opened all those doors. And then on a spiritual level, I mean, I was super obsessed with the paranormal world. I think because the church wasn't really talking about the demonic or the fact that, seeing spirits was something that could really happen.
Yeah.
I literally got sucked into the paranormal entertainment scene, and I started watching ghost shows, and I started, getting my advice from them. I mean, if you go to Google and you say, what do you do if there's a ghost in your house? They're going to say, consult your local psychic, burn sage, tell it nicely to leave,
sacrifice a chicken.
Yeah, no, I mean, all sorts of stuff. And what you rarely ever see is actually a biblical answer or a Christian response to how do we handle these things. And so, I would say stay absolutely away from the things the Bible warns you about, right? And actually something that I mentioned, but we didn't really talk about too, is the tattoos. What did God say in Leviticus? Don't make cuts to your body for the gods. What did I do? I put Egyptian cat goddesses on my body, basically like a landing pad. I marked myself for them, and yes, I belong to the Lord, but all these little doors I opened, participation in the supernatural on the demonic side, the paranormal, consulting, witchcraft, the new age, shamans. I mean, all of that, it, like you said, it compounds the darkness. It gives the darkness even greater access. And so, here I was really trying to seek freedom and ended up further and further and further and further bound by the darkness. So,
and you had been in the church.
Yeah.
But because the church didn't talk about the spirit world, they're busy talking about habits and behavior and all of that, not talking about spirit. We were created to have a fascination for the spirit world, right. All of us. And we think if I have that fascination for the spirit world, I must be demonically oppressed or something. The people really are fascinated by the spirit world. But if the church does not define the spirit world, the world of this culture and world will define it for you. You will allow Satan to define it for them. The kids growing up, the adults in our churches, They need someone to speak up and to help define. But so many of our leaders aren't familiar with the spiritual world. They're not. They're uncomfortable with it. And because we're so busy trying to put butts in seats, we're too afraid of scaring people and making them think we're freak shows.
Right.
And yet the reality is, who's defining this world for them? Because we all need it defined for us. And as the church and the church world, we need to do a better job of understanding it and communicating it to our people, so that these doors that are being opened, that you opened, I mean, you were in church, and you didn't even look to the church, which is interesting to me, even though it was the church that went to your house and got rid of the demons and caused it to stop, somehow that was a memory that was either forgotten or not recalled.
Because you went to witchcraft after that, right?
I did. And I think what it really was still was a lack of understanding of why it worked, or like what that meant.
Interesting.
Right? Because like at the time, like when I went to college, I still had no idea that I had any authority as a believer, or, like I didn't even know what authority was or what it meant, or, I didn't realize, like, why did the demons listen to the church? Why did they listen to the people who came from the church and commanded them to go? I never made that mental connection. And like you said, right, these experiences are happening to people. I mean, look at the entertainment industry and how big the paranormal world is.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Second largest, second most money spent.
Okay.
On a holiday is this period of time because of the paranormal.
Right. And so like, let's really think about that. Why do you have all these kids and people in general turning to the paranormal and looking for answers? Because they've had real experiences with something.
Yeah. And Alex did a video where he went out and talked to people, and a number of them that he had interviewed that had paranormal experiences.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling you, and why we talked about this. If you want to check out that episode, I'll probably link it right here, where we talk about demons and our authority in Jesus. And we went out and interviewed people on the U of M campus and asked if they've ever had a paranormal encounter, because there's a lot of people I think that are embarrassed to talk about it because they think it's delusion. Right. But it's real, and the church has the answer. And so those things aren't being discussed, so they look to other sources, and they reduce spirituality to a horror film. But it's real. So
well, and it's funny too, because we think of deliverance from demons, and you think poltergeist or something crazy. So when the Lord set me free, and like, they can manifest when they come out. It was incredibly peaceful and gentle. My sister describes my deliverance as if Jesus was sitting next to me.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and restoring me. Now, it was kind of funny. The cats were freaking out because they could probably see that something was like manifesting or leaving. But what the picture of with me was me sitting there with the Lord, weeping as I repented and turned back to Him, and Him just kind of like restoring me. And also like taking the darkness off of me. Yeah,
and I think what a lot of people need to be aware of, all of this paranormal movie stuff and stuff that you open the door to, that comes from somewhere.
Yep.
That's an experience that creators who put that into entertainment format have those experiences, and they illustrate that on movie form, almost enticing people to do that. But if you're in that place right now, there is an out.
Yep.
And that out is Jesus. I mean, there are no giants when you come to Jesus. As believers, we're not afraid of demonic things.
No.
You have to be careful that they don't deceive you, but we're not afraid of them at all. And I think you go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and this is a very real thing. Satan had to convince Eve that she could be like God.
Right.
When she was already like God, because she was connected to Him. The only thing different really was God is the generator of all things. He creates, we don't create. Eve was receiving, she had to be in the image of God in order to have relationship with Him. It's why cats don't have relationships with God, or dogs, or any of those things, because God didn't create them to be that. And the enemy convinces us that there's something in you God won't give you, and that's just not true.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I did not deserve my deliverance, right? None of us deserve freedom from Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you're out there and you're stuck in a place where you're like, I've been doing XYZ, I'm a horrible person. It really doesn't matter what you've done. If you want Jesus, you can have that relationship restored. I mean, he's not sitting there going, oh yeah, your sin's way too big, or what you did is way too much. Like if there's any sin, anything that is too big, then Jesus, his sacrifice wasn't anything. But we know that's not true. We know it was everything. It paid for everything.
Yeah. And you think of when the church went into the pagan world, they openly worshiped gods on a regular, I mean, it was an open practice. And these people who were doing that were coming to Christ, and the church was growing in these areas as they left the paganism and the worship. I mean, it was open and blatant. They just didn't know. And yet Christ came and he was showing them the light, bringing them back into their identity. Everything revolves around discovering who he is, which then allows you to discover who you were created to be. It's all about identity.
Yes.
When you find your identity, we don't overcome the devils with formulas. We overcome them with knowing who we are. And Satan is doing everything he can, even when they tried to deliver you, to come against you, to mock things so you would never discover who you really are. That's the weapon of warfare of choice, is to lie to you enough to keep you in bondage so that you never become what God actually created you to be. So it's not like you have to become this person in order to follow Christ. It's discovering who's there, but you're not able to live out because the enemy has convinced you that's not who you are.
Well, and even after my deliverance, that battle didn't stop because the enemy was actively still trying to assign me an identity that wasn't mine. Yeah. I'll give you an example. So when I was in the psych wards, like I'd like self-proclaimed myself to be like the queen of the psych ward, like Harley Quinn, right? The Joker's girlfriend. Which is a very demonic manifestation in a cartoon, but that's another story. So I actually went out to see one of the evangelists who had helped set me free preach. And I'm sitting in the parking lot and I just look up and there's a guy that walks by and he looks right at me and you could just tell like his eyes were really dark and low. And he was wearing a t-shirt and it was Harley Quinn and it said Daddy's Monster. And the enemy kept trying to tell me like I belong to him. And it took years of identity work before that didn't scare me anymore. Because, I mean, when I tell you that the enemy tried to actually come up with evidence that I was his, I mean, literally would come up with arguments and evidence that, he would use to justify that. Yeah, that I wasn't of God for years. And so what it really boiled down to, though, was, understanding who I was, right? The identity piece, and really truly knowing the love of God. What does it say? The love of God literally casts out that fear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a minute because the enemy was still, even after my deliverance, trying to say, you're not the Lord's, you're mine.
Yeah, you got to take those, and you got to take it captive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's what the war is. It's what the battle is not carnal warfare. It's spiritual warfare, and it's taking those thoughts captive. And when the thought goes through your head, that's not enough to just say, oh, that isn't from God. You have to take it captive, meaning you have to take the thought and make it obedient to Christ.
Right.
That's what it says. What that means is, that thought went through your head, you have to literally, with truth, say why it's not true. You have to take out its legs so it can't run through your head.
Right.
Yeah. So, Mykenna, there was a whole lot I think people are going to need to listen to this back twice. There's a whole lot of nuggets in there, just from the stories to the application. Hopefully that this will lead someone to be set free by the power of God. So I really appreciate you being able and willing to come here and being able to share that with people. I always tell people every time we do a testimony, it feels like I'm loading one in the chamber every time I do a post of someone else's story, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so I pray that this would be put in front of the right people, and it would give them the confidence to draw near to the one who can truly save. So I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for letting me come on and share what the Lord's done. God is good. And I would just say too, like, if you're out there and you're suffering, like, don't let the enemy lie to you and tell you, oh, these people are, just anti-mental health and anti-this or anti-that. Like, no, God just wants to see you free, right? Like, the reality is like, I'm not anti, mental health or anti people who are suffering. I know what it feels like to be in that place, and it's awful.
Yeah.
I share this because I tried everything and nothing worked. I got sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker until Jesus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you have to lose by just being open
to
the idea that he can free you?
Exactly.
So, I mean, just try to have an open mind, right? Like, if you're willing to literally put heavy sedative psychiatric drugs into your system, try to combat this. What do you have to lose by saying, God, I'm going to open up my heart to you.
Might as well.
Can you please help me?
Side effects are salvation.
Right. Literally. Like, you might actually encounter the living God.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a way better deal than might die of a rash if you try to stop taking this drug, But yeah, I mean,
that sounds not good.
No, but I didn't know it at the time. That was one of the potential side effects of stopping my medication abruptly.
One of the great takeaways from this is you could become a compulsive gambler.
Yeah.
That was the first I'd heard about that. That's so interesting.
It actually took a doctor who said, did you have gambling problems before you started this drug? I'm like, not really. No. I mean, I would go to the casino once in a while, and she's like, let's just try stopping it and see what happens. And I literally stopped going to the casino. It was like 3 years of my life. But yeah, like I said, the only side effect you might experience is you might actually encounter the living God. Let's go.
Yeah. So we want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure right now, if you enjoyed this, hit the like and subscribe button. And by hitting the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell, you won't miss out on any interviews and content that we post. You'll get a notification right to your phone. Also, leave us a comment. I always love hearing what your guys' thoughts are or your testimonies. You also can text me at 651-419-4409. If you have a testimony you would like to share, I always love receiving those. We love getting to see what you guys think. So make sure you share this with a friend. We love you guys. We pray this blessed you and that you would experience the truth. Truth has his name, and his name is Jesus Christ. Amen. And he can set you free.